Hello, in this video I'm trying out the Hamilton Beach Multiblend Blender. It's a 48-ounce capacity blender. I was sent this blender by Hamilton Beach in exchange for an honest review, and that's what I'll give you. This is the box the blender came in. You can see it pictured on the front. And next to it we have the blender itself. And I did put those paper towels there so you could get an idea of the size of it. It does have a plastic blender on it, so the picture is plastic. This is the instruction sheet that came with it. You can see there at the top, there are a number of different blender models pictured. I did circle this model. It's model 58180. And all of these models have something different about them. This one has some features I'll take you through in just a moment. And we'll look at that blender again. On the front, we've got the buttons from left to right. There's an off button. There's a mix, milkshake, easy clean button. There's a puree, smoothie, icy drink button, a dice chop salsa button, and a grind crush ice button. The dice chop and the grind buttons are pulse buttons, so you've got to keep your finger down on those to keep them going. Whereas the mix and the puree buttons, they will stay down unless you hit the off button to shut them off. And the power of the blender increases from buttons left to right. So here we have the top of the blender, the lid coming off. The lid does fit very securely, and it has an ingredient measuring cap on it that holds, it's got a measurement on the side to show you where an ounce is. And it is also, the metric is also shown on there. And I did find that anything having to do with the lid was very secure. This ingredient measuring cap twisted on and clicked in very securely. There is a pour spout there that lifts up if you want to pour something out without having to take the entire lid off. And it does click shut very securely. So you know it is closed and it's going to stay closed. And the entire lid itself fits on there very well. Just like putting a lid on a piece of Tupperware. You know that it's going to click into place and stay on. You see me having to struggle a bit with getting it lined up. It takes a little practice at first, but I find once you get it lined up, you can get it on there and you know it's going to stay on there and not going to fly off or come loose on you. Now on the back of it, there is cord storage. So there's a little area, a little hole there where you can actually kind of tuck the cord up in there so it's not hanging out. It looks like it would take some doing. I didn't actually try to stuff the cord in there myself, but it looks like it takes some doing to get it in there. I would more likely take like a twist tie and kind of bundle the cord up behind it if I was going to store it. Here I'm taking the blender jar off, and it has a collar that will twist off. And you'd want to take that off of there if you needed to clean the blender very well after a use. But it twists right back on. You can see the blade assembly in there as I'm doing this. And then that can be set back on the base. And it just takes a little twist and you know it's in place. So I want to try this out. So I've got some oats and I'm going to grind them to make some oat flour to use as a binder for some chickpea patties I'll be making. So these are some oats I've measured out. I'm going to pour them in the blender, and I'll put the top back on securely. There they go, into the blender. Get the top securely pressed down and clicked on there. And for this, I'm going to be using the grind feature. So that'd be the button furthest to the right to change these oats into oat flour. So we'll take a look at what that looks like. There they go. And it really did a good job of this very quickly. You can see the powder blowing around in there as it grinds them. It ground them very well. So that job is done. And I am making chickpea patties. That's my plan. So I drained a can of chickpeas, and I will be adding those into the blender next. There go the chickpeas. And for the chickpeas, I try out some different buttons on the front, but I settled on dice chop. And it does take a bit of work to get the chickpeas to the right consistency and get them chopped enough to make the consistency of the patty material that I want to use to make my chickpea patties with. So they hop around a bit. But if you look at the very bottom of the blender jar, you can see it's chopping them up. And it's going to take some help from me to make sure they can get down in there and kind of mix it up a bit to allow some movement of those in there to do the job. So that's where the spatula comes in, and I'm going to have to take that top off and help it along a bit. And there you can see it is doing the job. But whenever chopping chickpeas, you've got to put a bit of work into it. And with this blender, that's no different. So here comes the spatula. You got to stir them around a bit. Oop, I lost one. But I'll get that back later. Don't want to lose any of the chickpeas. And you can see the consistency of it in there. It is chopping them and doing a pretty good job of it. Okay, I will get that lid back on and give it some more pulses. I am going to add some of the liquid from the beans that I saved because it does need some moisture in there to help it. So that's what I poured in there. Get that lid secure and pulse it again. You can see them hopping around in there. Go beans, go. I say beans, they're garbanzo beans, chickpeas. They're one and the same. It's looking pretty good. Actually, it looks like some pretty good hummus here. I could probably grab some crackers and put some hummus on there. But I am going to create chickpea patties. So that's what I intend to do with this. Maybe hummus another time. Okay, I did add some spices to the mixture because the beans can use some help. So there go my spices. And I'm going to give it a few more pulses. I think this is about ready to go. And I'm going to be able to form this into patties pretty soon. So get that lid on there securely. And it's looking pretty well chopped. I'll help it mix along with my spatula when I take off the lid for that last time before taking everything out of the blender jar. There it goes. There's not too much more the blender can do with it, and it has done a pretty good job of chopping those beans up. Just give it a last few pulses. And there's really not much more movement in there that I can see from the top. So I'm going to call it done. Oh, don't forget that one that got away. I'm going to take off the ingredient measuring cap and put that lone bean in there. There it goes. Don't let any beans go to waste. Or chickpeas. Whatever you call them. Okay, so I did get everything out of there. You can see what mess I was left with. My spatula helped me get all of my, I guess you could call it at this point, chickpea paste out, and I got it into this bowl. It does look like some nice hummus, like I said before, but again, I am making chickpea patties. So there you can see what I've got after the blender did its job. Looks pretty good, and the consistency is really good. It's hanging together, and it's going to make some great patties. Okay, so there is an easy clean feature on the milkshake button. You put some dishwashing detergent, just a couple of drops, some water into it, and you hit that button and it will spin up a clean blender. And I found that this was very effective. Unfortunately, my camera malfunctioned when I was doing the easy clean feature, but I can describe it to you as it was a whirlwind of water, soap, and created suds in there. And when I stopped and poured it out into the sink, it really loosened anything that was still stuck in the blender, especially down there in the blade area. It made it much easier to clean. And I did follow up and wash it out by hand as well, but that was nice and sped up the whole cleaning process. Well, I've got to show you the end result. Here's my bean patties frying in the pan, or my chickpea patties. Looking pretty good. Overall, it was successful. The blender did its job. This is exactly what I wanted to end up with. There it is. You can see the blender looking clean in the end and ready to go for whatever it is I want to create in it next. So overall, I find this to be a great blender, easy to use, easy to operate, and I would recommend it if you're looking for a basic blender to do simple tasks in the kitchen.